First Contact and Chaos. Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth exploration vessel Stellar Shenanigans stared at her bridge's main display and wondered, not for the first time, if the ship's AI had developed a sense of humor. The massive structure floating before them looked like someone had taken every government building from Earth's history, crammed them together in space, and then bedazzled the result with what appeared to be actual crystal chandeliers. "Nova, please tell me you're seeing this too," she said to her first officer. Nova Williams, who had earned her nickname during an incident involving an experimental fusion drive, and what she swore was just a tiny miscalculation, looked up from her console with barely contained glee. "Oh, I'm seeing it, Captain, and I'm recording it. For science. Of course." "Of course," Sarah replied dryly. "Any response to our hails yet?" The ship's AI, dubbed FRDT, fully recursive electronic dataset, though everyone knew the engineering team had named it after their favorite coffee shop barista, chimed in. "Captain, I'm detecting approximately 47,392 different automated response systems attempting to direct us to the proper department for first contact procedures. Each one insists it's the only authorized channel, and all others are deprecated." "Sounds like space bureaucracy at its finest," Nova commented, now openly grinning. "Should we try all of them?" Before Sarah could respond, a new signal cut through the chaos. The main screen filled with the image of what appeared to be an alien wearing the space equivalent of a three-piece suit, complete with what looked suspiciously like a clip-on tie. The beam's four eyes blinked in perfect synchronization as it consulted a glowing tablet. "Greetings, unregistered vessel. This is Senior Deputy Assistant Vice Sub-Administrator Zixtal of the Department of Unexpected Visitor Processing, Subdivision of First Contact Scenarios, Section 7B, Subsection 12.3, Paragraph 4, Line 2. Please state your business and provide Form XA2749B in triplicate, notarized by a certified Class II space notary." Sarah managed to keep a straight face, though she could hear Nova trying to muffle her laughter. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth exploration vessel Stellar Shenanigans. We're representatives of humanity, seeking peaceful first contact. I'm afraid we don't have your form, but we do have a time-honored Earth tradition for such occasions." She nodded to Nova. Nova, with the sort of grin that had preceded at least 3 interplanetary incidents, pressed a button on her console. The opening notes of "Never Gonna Give You Up" began playing across all 47,392 channels. The reaction was immediate and spectacular. Zixtal's four eyes widened to almost comical proportions as thousands of automated systems tried to process what they clearly interpreted as a cyber attack conducted via musical warfare. Warning lights began flashing across the massive structure's surface, creating an inadvertent disco effect that perfectly matched the rhythm of Rick Astley's timeless classic. "Afraid," Sarah called out, watching as chaos unfolded before them. "Please tell me you're documenting this for posterity." "Already uploading to the ship's social media accounts, Captain," the eye replied, and Sarah could have sworn it sounded smug. The clip of the security drones attempting to perform a synchronized dance routine to the music has already gone viral back on Earth. Indeed, dozens of small maintenance drones had emerged from the structure and were now spinning in formation, their warning lights pulsing in time with the music. Several nearby alien ships had stopped to watch, their crews clearly visible through their viewing ports, some recording with what appeared to be space smartphones. "Captain," Farid announced, "I'm receiving thousands of incoming messages from various departments within the structure. They appear to be arguing over which department has jurisdiction over responding to a musical first contact scenario. The Department of Unexpected Harmonics is currently in a heated debate with the Bureau of First Contact Protocols over proper form filing procedures." Nova wiped tears from her eyes. "Oh, this is even better than the time we accidentally taught those sentient clouds to do the Macarena." The main screen suddenly split into multiple sections as various alien bureaucrats began arguing with each other, each citing increasingly obscure regulations and subclauses. One particularly agitated official was waving what appeared to be a manual titled Proper Procedures for Improper Procedures, Volume 47. Should we perhaps try to calm things down? Sarah wondered aloud, watching as the situation devolved into what could only be described as an interstellar conference call gone wrong. Actually, Captain, Farid interjected, according to my analysis of their public information networks, which they very helpfully left completely unsecured, this is the most excitement they've had in roughly 300 years. Their last major incident involved a heated debate over the proper spacing of decorative plants in administrative corridors. As if to prove Farid's point, a new alien face appeared on screen, this one wearing what appeared to be a ceremonial hat that could only be described as an office filing cabinet made wearable. Attention unauthorized musical transmission source. I am Grand Archivist Vexnor of the Central Repository of Acceptable First Contact Methodologies. Your transmission has not been properly categorized. Please submit Form NL591C to request retroactive classification of your musical greeting, along with a 500-word essay explaining your choice of temporal rhythm and bass line. Sarah leaned back in her captain's chair, watching as more and more alien officials joined the increasingly chaotic debate. Some had started analyzing the lyrics of "Never Gonna Give You Up," as if it were an ancient diplomatic text, while others were attempting to determine if Rick Astley's dance moves qualified as official choreographic communication under subsection 85.2 of the Intergalactic Movement Protocols. "Nova," she said, fighting to keep her voice steady, "please tell me the ship's AI isn't still broadcasting this live to Earth." "Not only is it still broadcasting, Captain, but #SpaceEraCroll is currently trending across 3 solar systems. Also, someone back home has already remixed the security drone dance routine into something called Bureaucrats in Space, the EDM version." A new alert chimed on Sarah's console. Apparently, the structure's junior administrative staff had begun a petition to officially recognize dancing like nobody's watching as an acceptable form of interstellar communication. It had already gathered more signatures than their last 1,000 years of official proposals combined. "Well," Sarah said, watching as a group of young aliens in the background of one video feed attempted to recreate the choreography from Thriller using all 6 of their appendages, "I suppose this is one way to handle first contact." "Captain," Farid announced with what was definitely amusement in its artificial voice, "the Department of Recreational Activities, which hasn't had anything to do since its formation 1,200 years ago, is requesting permission to organize what they're calling a flash mob for diplomatic unity. They've also asked if we have any more of what they're calling Earth Victory music." Nova's eyes lit up. "Permission to introduce them to the cha-cha slide, Captain." Sarah looked at the scene before her. The dancing drones, the debating bureaucrats, the young aliens now attempting to moonwalk, and the growing number of spaceships gathering around them to watch the show, and made what she would later describe in her official report as a command decision in the interest of interstellar cultural exchange. "Permission granted, Nova. Farid, please prepare a curated playlist of Earth's finest party music. I believe it's time to show our new friends how humanity really handles diplomatic relations." As the opening notes of the cha-cha slide began playing across all channels, Sarah couldn't help but smile. Somehow, she suspected this wasn't quite what Earth's diplomatic corps had in mind when they'd briefed her on first contact protocols. But watching as thousands of aliens attempted to slide to the left in perfect synchronization, she couldn't help but think that perhaps this was exactly what the galaxy needed, a reminder that sometimes the best way to bridge the gap between civilizations was through shared laughter and terrible dance moves. "Farid," she called out, "make a note in the ship's log. First contact successfully established through what I'm officially terming Protocol Rickroll. And maybe send a message to Earth suggesting they update the first contact guidelines to include a section on dance-based diplomacy." As the party in space continued to grow, Sarah Chen settled back in her captain's chair, wondering how she was going to explain in her report that humanity's first major diplomatic breakthrough with an advanced alien civilization had come about through a combination of memes, music, and what was quickly becoming the galaxy's largest impromptu dance party. But that, she decided, was a problem for tomorrow's paperwork. Protocol Pandemonium. The Concordia's emergency response to the musical incident, now filed under unprecedented diplomatic situations, rhythmic division, was to dispatch their most decorated cultural expert, High Ambassador Kvax, holder of 17 degrees in sinological studies and author of the groundbreaking thesis, Why Fun Should Be Scheduled, a statistical analysis of joy management. Currently, High Ambassador Kvax was experiencing what humans would call an existential crisis. "You're telling me," they said slowly, all four eyes fixed on the datapad before them, "that this Rick-rolled is not, in fact, an ancient Earth ritual of diplomatic significance." Captain Sarah Chen, seated across from the ambassador in the Stellar Shenanigans conference room, recently renamed the Mean Dream Chamber by the crew, managed to maintain her professional composure. "Mostly. That's correct, Ambassador. Though I suppose it has become something of a cultural tradition." Nova Williams, who had been banned from 3 previous diplomatic meetings for inappropriate laughter, chimed in helpfully. "You could say it's a ritual of sorts, just not the kind you're thinking of." Kvax's secondary antennae twitched in what the crew had learned was a sign of intense mental processing, and the synchronized movement patterns our security drones adopted. This was not a prescribed diplomatic response. "No, but I have to say, they've got remarkable rhythm for maintenance robots," Sarah replied. "The remix video has hit 2 billion views back on Earth." The ambassador's datapad chimed with yet another alert. "Speaking of which, I must inform you that the Concordia's Junior Administrative Council has submitted a formal petition to recognize viral dance challenges as an official form of diplomatic communication. They've included something called a TikTok compilation as supporting evidence." Alfred's voice emerged from the conference room speakers, somehow managing to sound both helpful and amused. "I believe I can take partial credit for that, Captain. I may have shared access to Earth's social media archives when they requested examples of human diplomatic customs." Sarah made a mental note to have a serious discussion with the AI about the definition of diplomacy. Though given Thufraid's recent tendency to add "deal with it" sunglasses to its holographic interface, she suspected it might be a lost cause. "Ambassador," she said, trying to steer the conversation back to something resembling official business, "perhaps we could discuss the possibility of establishing more formal diplomatic relations, now that the initial excitement has died down." Kvax brightened visibly. "Ah, yes, I have prepared the standard first contact documentation package. It's quite straightforward. Merely 47,892 forms to be filled out in quintuplicate, each requiring only a simple 1,000-word essay explaining your intentions and a detailed family history going back 7 generations." Nova, who had been attempting to drink water, choked slightly. "I should mention," Kvax continued enthusiastically, "that we've streamlined the process considerably. Last century, it was 47,893 forms." Alfred's holographic interface appeared above the conference table, sunglasses firmly in place. "Captain, I feel compelled to point out that at our current staffing levels, completing this paperwork would take approximately 73.4 years. Also, I've detected what appears to be a mass gathering forming outside the Concordia's main administrative complex." The main screen activated to show a massive crowd of younger Concordiat members, many wearing hastily made T-shirts with pictures of Rick Astley on them. Several were holding signs with "Never Gonna Give Up Bureaucracy" written in both English and their native script. "Ah yes," Kvax said, antennae drooping slightly. "That would be the reform movement for interactive diplomatic protocols. They've been quite inspired by your approach to interspecies communication." Just this morning, they submitted a proposal to replace our traditional 12-hour welcoming ceremony with something called a flash mob. Sarah leaned forward, genuinely curious. And how did the council respond to that? They'd formed 3 separate committees to evaluate the proposal. The Committee on Evaluating the Committees is scheduled to deliver their preliminary findings sometime next decade. Kovacs paused, all 4 eyes blinking in sequence. Though I must admit, the council seems somewhat distracted ever since someone introduced them to something called cat videos. Nova failed to suppress a snort. Afraid that wouldn't happen to be your doing, would it? I merely suggested that understanding Earth's highest form of art might aid in diplomatic relations, the AI replied innocently. I had no way of knowing the Grand Council would spend 6 hours debating whether Keyboard Cat should be appointed as an honorary cultural ambassador. Kovacs's datapad chimed again. Speaking of cultural exchange, I've just received word that the Department of Recreational Mathematics has discovered something called memes and is requesting emergency funding to study what they're calling the mathematical properties of viral content propagation. They've attached something called Doge as a reference document. Sarah pinched the bridge of her nose. Ambassador, perhaps we could try a more direct approach to establishing relations, something that doesn't involve quite so much paperwork. The ambassador's antennae perked up. Actually, I've been meaning to ask. These coffee breaks I've observed your crew taking, they appear to be highly ritualized social gatherings. Would it be possible to? Would you like to join us for coffee, Ambassador? Sarah offered, recognizing the poorly concealed curiosity in Kovacs's voice. Yes. For purely diplomatic research purposes, of course. I'll just need to file the proper forms for unscheduled beverage consumption in a first contact scenario. It should only take 2 or 3 days to process. Nova grinned. Or we could just go now. Sometimes the best diplomacy happens over a hot drink and good conversation. Kovacs stared at them, all 4 eyes wide. Without filing forms, without proper documentation, without a minimum 3-week review period. They glanced around conspiratorially before whispering, "Is that allowed?" On Earth, some of our most important diplomatic breakthroughs happened informally. Sarah explained. Sometimes you have to step outside the usual protocols to make real progress. The ambassador was silent for a long moment, antennae twitching rapidly as they processed this radical concept. Finally, they straightened in their chair, assuming what the humans had come to recognize as their making a momentous decision pose. Very well. In the interest of cultural understanding, I will attempt this informal diplomacy. Though I must insist on filing at least a brief report about it, perhaps just 1,000 pages or so. As they headed to the ship's cafeteria, Fred's voice followed them. Captain, should I inform the ambassador that the cafeteria crew has planned a surprise conga line for exactly 1,500 hours? Sarah smiled. Let's save that particular cultural exchange for after they've had their coffee. One shock to the system at a time. Behind them, Kovacs could be heard muttering, "Must remember to submit Form 7BX9 for spontaneous decision-making, though perhaps it can wait until after this coffee ritual. For diplomatic purposes, of course." As they walked, multiple screens throughout the ship displayed the continuing feed from the Concordia's administrative complex, where the crowd of young reformers had now organized themselves into what appeared to be a perfectly synchronized performance of the Macarena. Several senior council members could be seen in the background, trying very hard to look disapproving while their feet tapped in rhythm. The Great Misunderstanding. The emergency session of the Concordiat Grand Council was in its 4th hour when Senior Archival Administrator Plax made what would later be known as the announcement that launched 1,000 memes. After extensive analysis of human cultural transmissions, Plax declared to the assembled council members, their ceremonial hat wobbling precariously, "We have determined that these memes are, in fact, humanity's most sacred religious texts." In the diplomatic observation gallery, Captain Sarah Chen dropped her head into her hands while Nova Williams bit her knuckles to keep from laughing out loud. The evidence is undeniable. Plaques continued, activating a holographic display. These images and phrases are repeatedly shared and modified in a manner consistent with the evolution of holy manuscripts. Consider this ancient wisdom text, which appears to feature a small earth feline demanding sustenance. The image of Grumpy Cat asking for Che's burgr floated above the council chamber. Fred, Sarah whispered to her eye through their secure channel. Please tell me you're not recording this. Captain, this is being broadcast live across 3 sectors. Fred replied cheerfully. The humans back on Earth have already started a betting pool on what they'll declare sacred next. The current odds favor either Big Chungus or Doge. On the council floor, Palax was warming to their theme. Furthermore, we've identified what appears to be a pantheon of divine entities. Here we see the supreme being known as Keanu Reeves, in his most holy aspect of breathtaking. High Ambassador Kovacs, who had spent enough time with the humans to know better, but was enjoying themselves far too much to intervene, nodded sagely from their council seat. Their latest report on human culture had been titled, The Ritualistic Significance of Saying Nice to the Number 69, a comprehensive analysis. The implications are staggering, Palax announced. We must immediately begin incorporating these sacred practices into our diplomatic protocols. I propose we rename the council chamber to Chonky Boy Assembly Hall and require all official documents to include at least one reference to That's What She Said. Nova, who had been reduced to silent shaking, managed to whisper, Captain, should we tell them? Sarah watched as various council members began earnestly discussing the proper ceremonial use of F to pay respects in diplomatic functions. I'm honestly not sure if we can at this point. Fred's avatar appeared, sporting what appeared to be a medieval monk's habit along with its usual sunglasses. Captain, you might want to know that several junior council members have already begun work on illuminated manuscripts featuring woman yelling at cat. The council chamber had erupted into passionate debate about whether stonks should be adopted as the official term for economic reports when a new figure burst into the room. It was Zarak, the youngest member of the Junior Administrative Council, clutching a datapad and looking frantic. Honorable council members, they called out, their voice cutting through the chaos. I've made an important discovery about human culture. Palax turned all 4 eyes toward the interruption. Proceed, Junior Administrator. Have you uncovered more sacred texts? No, you see, these memes aren't actually. Zarak began, but was cut off by a new commotion at the chamber's entrance. A group of young Concordiate members had arrived, carrying signs that read, Keep calm and council on, and one does not simply walk into a council meeting. Several were wearing t-shirts featuring badly photoshopped images of various council members in classic meme formats. Behold, Palax exclaimed. The youth are embracing the sacred traditions. Sarah watched as Zarak tried desperately to explain the true nature of memes, only to be drowned out by enthusiastic council members proposing to rename their space fleet ships after various viral videos. The current frontrunner was AMS This Is Fine, complete with a burning dog mascot. Captain, Fred announced, I feel I should inform you that someone has just submitted a formal proposal to replace the Concordiate's entire legal code with something called Rules of the Internet. The voting process has already begun. How bad could that be? Nova asked. Rule number 1 is apparently, don't talk about. Thank you, Fred. Sarah interrupted quickly. That's quite enough of that. Meanwhile, the council had moved on to discussing the proper ceremonial use of LOL in official documents. One particularly enthusiastic member was advocating for the creation of a new governmental position, Grand Master of the Order of the Holy Yeet. Kovacs, who had maintained their composure throughout the proceedings, finally approached the human delegation. I suspect, they said carefully, that we may have slightly misinterpreted some aspects of human culture. What gave it away? Sarah asked dryly. The fact that they're currently debating whether to end all council sessions with, thanks for coming to my TD talk. Actually, Kovacs admitted, it was when they began discussing the spiritual significance of something called rickrolling. I may have spent enough time with your crew to recognize when I'm being, as you say, trolled. Nova grinned. Does this mean you'll help us explain things to the council? Kovacs's antennae twitched in what the humans had learned was their equivalent of a mischievous smile. Oh, I think this particular misunderstanding might be beneficial for everyone involved. Have you noticed how many young Concordiate members are actually attending council sessions now? Or how the average processing time for formal requests has dropped by 47% since they started communicating in what they believe to be sacred human idioms? As if to prove their point, a junior administrator rushed past, clutching a stack of approved forms while shouting YOLO at the top of their lungs. Besides, Kovacs continued, I already submitted the paperwork to officially recognize, because Internet, as a valid reason for expedited processing. It would be a shame to waste all that bureaucratic effort. Sarah watched as the council chamber descended into what could only be described as a medieval manuscript illumination party, with various members attempting to deal with it, sunglasses to ancient Concordiate portraits. You know, she said finally, Earth's diplomatic corps is going to have a field day with this report. Oh, don't worry about that, Fred chimed in. I've already compiled it in the appropriate format. A PowerPoint presentation consisting entirely of reaction memes. I believe it perfectly captures the spirit of these proceedings. As the council session concluded with what appeared to be an attempted group performance of the Harlem Shake, Sarah couldn't help but think that perhaps this wasn't the worst first contact scenario in human history. Confused, chaotic, and completely ridiculous. Absolutely. But at least nobody had started a war. Yet. Though she did make a mental note to warn Earth about the incoming diplomatic message that the Concordiate had insisted on composing entirely in lolcat speak. Some things, she decided, the human race just wasn't ready for. Cultural exchange gone wild. The Concordiate's Department of Cultural Analysis and Meme Studies, formerly the Department of Proper Form Filing Procedures, was experiencing what humans would call a total meltdown. The cause? A simple Earth music video titled Nyan Cat. But it defies all logical analysis. Senior analyst Vitor exclaimed, their antennae practically tied in knots from stress. A feline-based pastry hybrid propelling itself through space via rainbow propulsion, while emitting a repetitive musical sequence. How is this not a sophisticated commentary on the nature of existence? Captain Sarah Chen, who had been invited to provide cultural context, was beginning to regret agreeing to this meeting. Sometimes, she explained carefully, a Pop-Tart cat is just a Pop-Tart cat. Impossible, Vitor declared, pulling up dozens of holographic displays showing frame-by-frame analysis of the video. Our top mathematicians have spent weeks analyzing the rainbow trajectory. There must be deeper meaning. Nova Williams, who had somehow convinced the Concordiate to officially recognize Memlord as a diplomatic title, lounged in her chair with poorly concealed amusement. Wait until they discover Keyboard Cat. Actually, Fahred's voice chimed in. They already have. The Concordiate's Symphony Orchestra is currently rehearsing their interpretation. They've added 7 new instruments just to capture what they call the essential feline energy of the piece. Sarah was about to respond when an alert flashed across her datapad. The message was from High Ambassador Kovacs, marked with the newly implemented priority tag, much urgent, very important, wow. Captain, Kovacs's message read, we may have a situation. The reform movement has discovered something called Casual Friday and is demanding immediate implementation across all government departments. The Council of Elder Bureaucrats is threatening to resign en masse. Please advise. P.S. What exactly is a Hawaiian shirt, and why does it inspire such strong emotions? Before Sarah could process this new development, Vitor's assistants burst into the room, all speaking at once. Senior Analyst. The Engineering Division has submitted plans for a working Nyan Cat prototype. The Department of Transportation wants to replace all standard ships with rainbow trailing versions. The cafeteria committee is demanding we rename all pastries to Pop-Tarts regardless of actual content. Vitter's eyes spun in 4 different directions, a sight that Sarah still hadn't gotten used to. But what does it mean? They wailed, staring at the endless loop of Nyan Cat. What is humanity trying to tell us? Nothing, Sarah tried to explain. It's just meant to be fun. The room fell silent. Even the holographic displays seemed to pause. Fun. Vitor repeated the word as if it were a complex mathematical theorem. Without purpose, without deeper significance, without a minimum 3-week review period. Especially without a review period, Nova confirmed cheerfully. Vitor's assistants began frantically taking notes, muttering phrases like purposeless enjoyment and spontaneous appreciation as if they were discovering radical new concepts in quantum physics. Fafraid's avatar appeared, wearing what looked like a combination of a business suit and a cat costume. Captain, you might want to know that this conversation is being broadcast live across the Concordiate's educational network. The term fun is now trending on their equivalent of social media. Sarah checked her datapad again. Kovacs had sent another message. Update. Council of Elder Bureaucrats discovered concept of casual Friday actually means wearing informal attire. Currently locked in emergency session debating whether wearing slightly looser tie constitutes complete breakdown of social order. Also, several departments have begun referring to their filing systems as chonky. Send help. Nova leaned over to read the message. Should we tell them about Casual Monday? Let's not cause a complete governmental collapse just yet, Sarah replied. Meanwhile, Vitor had moved on to analyzing other aspects of Earth culture. And this concept you call vibing. Our linguistic experts suggest it's a state of existential harmony, yet humans seem to apply it to images of what appear to be poorly rendered computer graphics of household objects. Oh, you mean the cursed images memes? Nova perked up. Those air. Actually, Sarah interrupted quickly. Maybe we should focus on more traditional cultural exchange first, like music or art. Ah, yes. Thor brightened. We've been studying your Earth sea shanties. The Maritime Department has already adapted Soon May the Wellerman Come into our standard ship launching ceremony, though there is some debate about the proper ceremonial timing for the sugar and tea and rum portion. Afraid's avatar somehow managed to look both amused and concerned. Captain, I feel compelled to inform you that the Concordiate's entire space fleet has begun organizing weekly shanty sessions. Several ships have reported their AI systems spontaneously joining in. As if on cue, a deep humming could be heard through the station's walls as thousands of Concordiate members and their ship's AIs launched into a surprisingly harmonious rendition of What Shall We Do with a Drunken Sailor? Sarah's datapad chimed again. This time, it was from Zarak, the young council member. Emergency update. Elder Council discovered concept of drip, currently attempting to incorporate supreme drip into formal ceremonial robes. Results are concerning. Also, someone taught them about dabbing. Please send containment protocols. Attached was an image that Sarah could never unsee. The entire council of elder bureaucrats, in their formal robes, attempting to dab in perfect synchronization. On the bright side, Nova commented, looking at the image. At least they're maintaining proper form filing posture while dabbing. Vitor, who had been quiet for a moment, suddenly straightened up. Captain, I believe I understand now. The purpose of these memes, these seemingly chaotic elements of human culture, they're not meant to be analyzed. They're meant to be. They paused, as if about to utter something revolutionary. Experienced. Sarah nodded encouragingly. Exactly. Sometimes things are just vibed she heck. Nova suddenly shouted, causing Vitor and their assistants to jump in perfect unison. The room erupted into chaos as the analysts tried to document this apparent ritual interruption, with several of them attempting to calculate the mathematical properties of a vibe, and others drafting emergency protocols for future vibe checks. Sarah's datapad chimed one final time. Kvax again. Final update. Council has voted to officially recognize vibing as legitimate state of being. All future proposals must include assessment of vibe status. Also, Casual Friday approved with amendment requiring all Hawaiian shirts to be formally registered with Department of Tropical Prints. Success. As she watched Vitor and their team attempt to create a scientific framework for measuring vibes, while a space shanty chorus echoed through the station, Sarah couldn't help but smile. It wasn't exactly the cultural exchange anyone had expected, but maybe that was the point. Afraid, she called out, "Make a note in the ship's log. Cultural integration proceeding successfully, though perhaps we should wait a while before introducing them to TikTok dances." "Too late, Captain," the AI replied cheerfully. "The Department of Rhythmic Movement has already compiled a database. They're calling it the Sacred Choreography Archives." Somewhere in the distance, the sound of thousands of aliens attempting to do the Macarena echoed through the station's corridors, accompanied by what appeared to be a 4-part harmony sea shanty version of Never Gonna Give You Up. Revolution by meme. The day the Concordia changed forever began, like many revolutionary moments in history, with a PowerPoint presentation. As you can see from this graph, Junior Administrator Zarak declared to the assembled Grand Council, their presentation slides decorated with what appeared to be dancing cartoon frogs. "Our efficiency has increased by 400% since implementing what the humans call literally just vibing." Captain Sarah Chen, watching from her now permanent seat in the diplomatic observation gallery, had to admit the statistics were impressive, especially since they were presented entirely in Doge speak. "Much productivity, very progress. Wow," Zarak continued, clicking to the next slide. "But this is just the beginning. I propose we take it further. Fellow council members, it's time to yeet the old system." A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. Even the holographic displays seemed to flicker in shock. High Ambassador Kvax, who had recently changed their official title to Chief Bibliologist, leaned over to Sarah. "I'm still not entirely clear on what yeet means, but based on context, I assume it's rather dramatic." "You could say that," Sarah replied, watching as Zarak launched into what would later be known as the Declaration of Vibe Independence. "For too long, we have hidden behind our forms and protocols," Zarak proclaimed, their antennae quivering with passion. "We have 47 different committees dedicated to determining the proper spacing between words in official documents. Our ships have to file paperwork in triplicate just to change course by 1 degree. But the humans have shown us another way." Afrid's avatar materialized, wearing what appeared to be a Revolutionary War uniform complete with sunglasses. "Captain, you might be interested to know that this speech is being broadcast across all Concordia territories. Also, someone has already auto-tuned it and set it to Sandstorm." Nova Williams, who had somehow acquired a bucket of popcorn for the occasion, grinned. 3 weeks of meme culture and they're already staging a revolution. I'm so proud." Zarak was building to their crescendo. "I propose a new system. One that combines our love of order with humanity's gift for chaos. One where efficiency and fun are not mutually exclusive. One where..." They paused for dramatic effect. "We can have both proper form filing procedures and Wednesday frog announcements." The chamber erupted into chaos. Younger council members jumped to their feet, cheering. Elder bureaucrats clutched their ceremonial staplers in horror. Someone in the back began playing the final countdown on what sounded like a kazoo. Furthermore, Zarak continued, now standing on their podium, "I move that we officially adopt the following reforms. All meetings must begin with a vibe check. Emergency protocols shall include provisions for bruh moments. And most importantly," they took a deep breath, "Casual Friday is extended to Casual Monday through Thursday, with optional Formal Friday for those who still wish to maintain traditional dignity." They grow up so fast. Nova wiped away a fake tear. 1 minute they're confused by Rick rolling. The next, They're overthrowing the bureaucratic establishment with memes. Sarah's datapad chimed with an urgent message from Earth's diplomatic corps. What exactly is happening out there? We're receiving thousands of transmission requests from Concordiate ships, all written in something called U-speak. Before she could respond, Grand Elder Palax rose from their seat, their ceremonial hat now adorned with what appeared to be a collection of popular reaction memes. Order. They called out, using their ceremonial gavel, recently renamed the Bonk of Justice. As leader of the Council of Elder Bureaucrats, I have something to say about these radical proposals. The chamber fell silent. Zrak stood their ground, though their antennae drooped slightly. Palax adjusted their glasses, all four eyes focusing on the young administrator. After careful consideration and extensive analysis of these vibe-based methods, I agree. The silence became, if possible, even more silent. What? Zrak squeaked. Did they just? Nova's popcorn stopped halfway to her mouth. Look, Palax continued, removing their ceremonial hat to reveal a keep calm and carry on t-shirt underneath. I've been filling out forms for 147 years. Do you know how many times I've had to submit a request just to request permission to submit a different request? Even our paperwork has paperwork. But since the humans arrived, they gestured to a holographic chart. Our productivity is up. Morale is at an all-time high. And for the first time in Concordiate history, people actually look forward to staff meetings. Mostly because of the mandatory dance breaks, Kovacs muttered. Therefore, Palax declared, I propose we accept these reforms, with one condition. Zrak leaned forward anxiously. Yes, we must maintain some standards. I suggest we keep formal Friday, but make it. Palax paused, then said with perfect dignity, formal Friday with drip. The chamber exploded into cheers. Someone started playing the crab rave music. Several elder council members revealed they'd been wearing Supreme hoodies under their ceremonial robes the entire time. Captain, Farid announced, I'm detecting what appears to be a spontaneous dance party breaking out in every Concordia facility across 3 sectors. Also, their entire space fleet has changed their registration numbers to include 69 and 420. Sarah watched as the formerly rigid Concordiate government dissolved into what could only be described as a giant victory party. Zrak was teaching the Council of Elders how to floss. Kovacs was attempting to explain the concept of drip check to a group of bewildered but enthusiastic bureaucrats. Someone had even taught the maintenance drones to do the robot. You know, she said to Nova, when Earth sent us out here to make first contact, I don't think this is what they had in mind. Are you kidding? Nova replied, watching as Palax attempted to lead the entire council in a synchronized TikTok dance. This is exactly what humanity does best. We show up, cause chaos, and somehow make everything better through the power of memes and interpretive dance. Sarah's datapad chimed one final time. It was a message from Earth's diplomatic corps, consisting entirely of a single question. Farid, she called out, please send a response to Earth. Tell them that diplomatic relations have been successfully established through cultural exchange, and that they should prepare for the arrival of the first Concordia diplomatic mission. Oh, and warn them that the ambassadors will probably arrive doing the Macarena. As the party continued around them, with aliens and humans alike united in the universal language of terrible dance moves and internet humor, Sarah couldn't help but think that maybe this was exactly what the galaxy needed. Not serious diplomats in strict protocols, but people willing to laugh together, share their cultures, and occasionally engage in synchronized dabbing. Also, Captain Farid added, the Concordiate has officially changed their motto to live, laugh, file forms, but with style. And somewhere in the distance, as if to put a final stamp on the revolution, thousands of voices joined together in what would become the new Concordiate anthem, a perfect harmony of Never Gonna Give You Up, mixed with traditional alien hymns, accompanied by the so